What kind of year in review show would it be if there wasn't a little bit of JP? Well, you're about to find out.
All right, thanks JP for, as our friend PJ would say, that fabulous introduction. Yeah, it's the Vegas Tips and Tricks Year in Review. And we're mostly going to focus on Vegas today and some of the changes we've seen there and my thoughts on that. But it's certainly been an interesting and challenging year here at the Vegas Tips and Tricks studio. There was a certain odd dichotomy to the beginning and the end of the year. We started out looking something like this. And just a few short months later, we looked like this. Along the way, many misadventures were had. We took you on a chilly tour of my neighborhood and went live several times. At one point, deciding that I needed to just leave midstream. At another time, deciding that during a live stream, I needed to go ahead and relieve myself. But perhaps nothing was more disturbing than the images from earlier this year when I decided that it would be a good idea for me to share my lunch with you.
Wow. Okay, so the heat is definitely building. Hang on to that. That's cool. But I would say the Atomic, I think that's what it was, the Atomic Wings at Wingstop, they're pretty hot. But they're not over the top. I don't know if I'd get 10 of them. 10 of them might be over the top, but wow, that's a good flavor. That's a really good flavor. Yeah, a couple more French fries. Ooh, sorry, but
Okay, well, you can't beat a YouTube video with burping. There were a lot of strange bodily noises featured on the show this year. There was plenty of eating and drinking. Much vodka and beer met its demise this year. I almost joined them. On the coffee now. Sadly, I had to say goodbye to my father earlier this year, back in the early spring. Good man, but he'd probably dealt with his issues long enough, and so rest in peace, Dad. You'll certainly be missed, and are. Later in this year, though, we discovered a very special person who has become a big part of my life. Hi, Caitlin. Our car gave out in the spring, but we got a new one. It was definitely a different sort of year at work, but one that was far less stressful. And the show kind of evolved. I wouldn't say we grew dramatically, but we kind of evolved from strictly Vegas content to Vegas plus whatever random ideas we had. We featured a number of appearances early in the year from our friend PJ, and also a few fill-in bartenders for our Cocktail of the Week and later our Cocktail Corner show. Perhaps we'll come back with something like that this year. It was certainly fun. We certainly appreciate those folks who contributed. Speaking of contributions, as part of today's show, I asked any of our viewers if they would like to contribute a short clip, preferably, less than a minute or so, although we kind of stretched that. You'll find out at the end. And the people that did would be entered into a contest where they could win a $25 Amazon gift card, because I have like $25 of Amazon credit anyway, so it really isn't going to cost me anything. Not only that, I get free content that all I have to do is patch it into the show. Well, that's what happens when you're the oldest Vegas vlogger. And I don't mean in age, but according to this next guy who did some research during the year, the earliest Vegas vlog that's still active is this one. Goes back to a clip that we uploaded from Mystic Falls at Sam's Town, of all places. It's still up there if you want to see it. But the guy who figured that out is the guy that's coming up first on our list of Vegas tips or tricks for the ears. It's short and sweet, just like him. Here's Kevin, you know him as Vegas Visual, with our first Vegas tip of the year.
My tip would be come to Vegas the week before Christmas. You get the best room rates, starting at $25 on the Strip, and Golden Gate was $17.
All right, good tip right there. If you don't mind things when they're a little chillier, you can maybe get a really good deal on a room. Okay, stay tuned till the end to see if he's our big winner, or little winner. My first trip to Vegas was in February. Notable, I stayed downtown the first couple of nights at the Plaza. So it was my first time seeing Circa, which had just opened a couple of months earlier. So I spent a fair amount of time there. The nights at the Plaza were comped, which was kind of cool. It was one of the older rooms, but it was still nice enough. Certainly did the trick, and enjoyed my time downtown, as usually is the case. First night I was there, I was surprised, perhaps even keynoted, you might say, by the Ace of Vegas. So I had a chance to hang out with him and a few friends of his that we met up along the way. So that was a good time. Ended up moving down to the Delano for the next couple of nights of my trip, highlighted by a couple of other meetups. Spent the better part of an evening hanging out with Walt and Tina, the frontiersmen, and, well, the frontierswoman, I guess. We hung out at the little bar outside of Bally's and had probably one too many Moscow Mules. If you want to check that out, become a member of the Patreon there for Walt and Tina, and you can see the whole extravaganza that was live streamed. But that was a lot of fun. Also made a couple of trips to Stage Door. Got a chance to hang out there with Mike Nebeker, always an entertaining fellow from up in the Pacific Northwest. Got to meet up with Steph and her daughter Daisy. We went to the barbecue place over there by the stadium. I can't remember what it's called. Okay, I'll put it on underneath the screen so you can go check it out. So that was cool. We also had a night that we all started the evening at Stage Door and ended up making our way over to Aria, where we got a chance to meet Destiny and a friend of hers. And I think eventually we made it over to the Steph's room at the Cosmopolitan, which gave us a pretty impressive view. And so that was pretty cool as well. And then spent one night at the Wynn, using up the last, basically, of my Wynn gems to do so. I've never been able to earn enough coin again to get another freebie from that, but always enjoy my time there, and was certainly no exception. Although I did oversleep and had to reschedule my flight the next day, so that's a little unusual. I was up a little too late the night before, but it worked out okay. I think I mentioned at a few points along the way that Circa really did impress me. It was kind of overwhelming walking in there the first time, seeing the big sports book and everything. I didn't play a ton there, but I didn't play nearly as much, period, this year as I had in previous years, which is probably why my comps are not quite so good anymore. But yeah, I had a great time getting to know that place during February, and then later, of course, when I went back in September, even though we were there only briefly. But yeah, a really interesting hotel and a really exciting addition to downtown, which it doesn't really feel like a downtown property, but it's a great property and certainly a worthy addition to the Stevens family of properties, the Golden Gate and the D being the others. Also spent a fair amount of time at that trip down at El Cortez, gambling, as well as Golden Gate, Plaza as well. As I mentioned, I was comped there at the Plaza for a couple of nights, but I didn't gamble enough there. I did do an exciting taste test on this trip where I sampled a slice of pizza, pepperoni, from Pizza Rock, Evil Pie, and Pop-Up Pizza. And my conclusion was that Evil Pie was actually my favorite. So check that place out if you haven't. Way down on East Fremont on the way down to El Cortez. All right, our next entry in the Vegas tip of the year is rather succinct, but it comes with a lot of visual aids. Unlike the man who sent it, the one and only Kevin from Dublin, who's become a good friend over this past 12 months. And so this was his direct advice about your next trip to Vegas. Okay, thanks to Kevin for that. We'll see if he's our big winner. Maybe everyone's named Kevin is a big winner. Okay, so one of the things I wanted to talk about on the show today, in fact, sort of the main thing I wanted to talk about, although we've gotten sidetracked as usual, was Vegas in 2021 and my thoughts. Obviously, 2021 was the first year, hopefully the last, in which the mask was a part of every Vegas experience. Although I think most of us who went, frequently the masks were not used, particularly if you were sitting at a bar and drinking or eating or outside. How effective the whole process is, I don't know. It's become such a ingrained part of my life at this point. I often wonder about small children who are coming of age, 4, 5, 6 years old and first starting to have memories about the world around them. And for them, the mask is simply normal. And I guess it's become sort of normal in my work environment and, out shopping or things like that. So, and it was certainly that way in Vegas. I can't say that I was terribly inconvenienced about it because I don't really remember it bothering me that much. Obviously if you're, sitting in a machine and sipping a drink or something, you have to pull it down to have a drink, but I don't know. But I guess for me it was kind of a minor inconvenience, but I know for some people it's a point of great concern. There were protests and everything all over the city that had mostly the effect of disrupting the very people who supposedly anyway would achieve some benefit. But Vegas certainly bounced back this year. Visitor numbers were huge. We didn't have the convention business that we'd had in the past. And how much of that comes back is anybody's guess. At the end of the year, we finally saw the return of our out-of-country visitors. First Canadians and then later in the year, the Brits, who have now fully taken over the city and are expected to annex it at some point within the next 2 weeks. So we saw some of our favorite vloggers finally make their way back, whether it be Matt Bridger, Ben Heath from Great Britain, or our friend Crystal from up north in Canada, or Duder. And of course, we saw the regular appearance of our good friend, the one and only Pennies for Vegas, who managed to avoid the pitfalls of many trips to Vegas and made several appearances. There were a number of new vloggers this year, and I can't even really begin to list them all. We'll see one of them in our next clip. But Vegas vlogging became kind of a big deal. And we saw not only Vegas visuals, sort of synopsis of all of what was going on in Vegas this year in the Vegas vlogging community, but there's now like a Twitter account that basically just makes fun of Vegas vlogging. It's become that big. And certainly there was a number of divisions within the vlogging community, whether it be the sort of local vloggers who, typically focus in on live streams, or perhaps some out-of-the-way places that we don't see as regular visitors, to those folks who focus very much on their slot play, to those focused on restaurants. So there's a lot of folks out there. One of the interesting vlogs that I stumbled on later in the year that isn't really specifically a Vegas vlog, but has kind of become one in the last several months, is one called Skeleton 88. And I'm not going to lie, one of the reasons that I first saw this vlog was because he was like cruising bad neighborhoods, like checking out streetwalkers and stuff. And I was like, well, this is fascinating. And of course he had to do that in Vegas. So if I didn't know where they were hanging out, I do now. In recent months, he's just been sort of driving around these sort of less desirable parts of the city and showing you parking lots and going down streets that nobody goes down. And I guess to me that's interesting because I make fun of it all the time. I've seen one too many walkthroughs of the Link Promenade, or for that matter, the Flamingo. So that was an interesting vlog. We saw meteoric success for some of the vloggers out there. And I remember last year first being introduced to Norma Helly. She even appeared, I think, briefly at the first Rocktober event. I didn't get a chance to meet her, unfortunately, but her vlog has just exploded in the past year. And we saw a guy who's really a very talented filmmaker. If you watch his stuff, Pomsey, who did a lot of Vegas videos this year. But it's my understanding he's more going to be focused on other areas and more focused in on his filmmaking. But certainly a very, very talented guy, and definitely check out some of what he's done. We had a number of folks that went on these sort of vlogging marathons, I guess I say. I don't know how many days that the Trooper did in a row. There was another guy, I think, that had done like a year straight. I did 7 days straight once, and that was enough for me. But so yeah, it was just about a Vegas vlog now for everybody. But of course, as we've talked about before, it's pretty much impossible to catch up with everything out there. Yeah, we even had vlogs that focused in on Laughlin this year. Bobby G kind of focused in on that category. So yeah, there's a lot of folks that have contributed to our community. Certainly there was no bigger event in our community this year than the sad news that our good friend Andy Goodspeed had been diagnosed with cancer. And even though he's doing very well, obviously it's a very serious disease and has definitely put a crimp in his life. We certainly continue to wish him and Simone the best and hope that 2022 will be a much more pleasant year for them. But that crisis brought the entire vlogging community together. There must have been a good 20 of us who, over the course of a weekend, managed to raise some $15,000 to help defray some of the expenses that he went through. And again, it was a blend of slot channels and Vegas channels and broader sorts of travel channels. And it was great seeing so many people come together. It was also great seeing so many people who outside the community or people that are a regular part of all of the live streams out there contribute so much. And I know that Andy and Simone particularly, you might think, Andy and Simone really appreciated that, and it was certainly a difficult time, but also one that I think made us all feel a little bit better about the support group that we have around us, quality people. And of course, at the end of the year, we saw what I'll call the prequel to what promises to be the big event of 2022, and that was the big Keno proposal, and then, of course, the wedding coming up this March, so that should be exciting. And if you'd like, there are 47 different angles for the proposal available somewhere on the internet, and, that seems like something that somebody should just compile all those videos and put them together. There you go. It's an idea for you. But yeah, Vegas was very much similar to what it's been in past years. At times it was a bit slower, but experience was much the same. So say for the beginning of the year, we saw the emergence of Circa. By the end of the year, we saw Resorts World opening its doors. I was much less impressed with Resorts World, but I really didn't have an opportunity to spend an awful lot of time there. So I'll have to do that on future trips. If I start thinking about sort of my favorite Vegas property of the year, I probably still have to go back again to Wynn and Encore. I probably won't be staying there on my next trip. It's very unlikely, but I've become quite attached to the property. It's just a really nice place to stay, and the rooms are great. I like the casino. It's very comfortable, clean. It's not so smoky. Generally the drink service is good. The only bad thing about the place is it's expensive. It's expensive to stay there unless it's comped. But the food is very expensive there as well. So I did find a little coffee shop over at Encore I thought was a really nice place to certainly grab some breakfast or a sandwich without entirely breaking the bank. And you can always go for the penny special at Charlie's and get the giant pretzel. It's a good spot as well. But yeah, I think that was probably my favorite casino this year and my favorite hotel. I did find myself once again being more and more drawn to the South Strip. And perhaps it's just a bit of, boredom with Mid-Strip because I'd spent so much time over the past few years staying at the Caesars properties and even places like Bellagio and Aria and such. But I find myself with a renewed interest in places like Mandalay Bay, Luxor, even Excalibur, New York, that area. I may even have to try to explore MGM Grand one of these days. And there were a lot of changes in Vegas and a lot of changes that seem like they are to come. We saw, of course, the demise of Hard Rock last year and the rise of Virgin, which certainly was the biggest flop of the year, shall we say. By all accounts, the parking lot sits empty most of the time unless there's a major event. So we certainly wish those folks the best, but it has not been a particularly auspicious start for Resorts World. But we saw Bally's, not that Bally's, buy Tropicana, which is still Tropicana, but it may not be. It may eventually be a baseball stadium. And maybe Luxor and Excalibur are just big parking lots to serve all of those sports facilities, or maybe there'll be a new hotel built somewhere in that area. Certainly Allegiant Stadium was a big highlight of my year in terms of being able to check it out. And certainly one of the most impressive structures you'll see anywhere as far as a sports stadium. And it's now set to host the Super Bowl in early 2024, a week I will not be anywhere near Las Vegas, but good luck to you if you are. But if Tropicana eventually becomes Bally's, what of Bally's? Well, I've speculated, and I think there's reason to believe that it might finally be rebranded as the Horseshoe. We do know that it'll be hosting the World Series of Poker starting next year, which seems like a good start. We also see that there's a lot of restaurants and things that have disappeared from that property, so a reboot seems logical, although some suggest that perhaps Bally's will be sold. I think it's most likely that if Caesars unloads a property this year, that it might be Planet Hollywood. It had been speculated that that would be a good way for the Hard Rock people, which is actually the one of the Native American tribes, is the Seminole tribe, is the folks that actually own most all the Hard Rock properties around the country. But that's not going to happen because they actually purchased the Mirage, or are in the process of purchasing the Mirage, which has led to some outrage, particularly with respect to the fact that they may be shutting down the venerable volcano that has been spewing its imaginary lava into the sky for the better part of 30 years. So we'll see what comes of that, but they did announce plans at least for a guitar-shaped hotel tower, and that would certainly be something to see. Speaking of something to see, most Vegas shows did return this year, but a lot of the smaller shows, particularly the ones at Caesars, just kind of didn't. We'll see how the current COVID conditions affect future shows in Las Vegas. We heard about a number of residencies that would come and go. Kisses came and went without ever coming at all. Adele, starting up here in just a few weeks, is promising to be the most expensive Vegas residency ever. And a number of big names have signed on at Resorts World, including Carrie Underwood and Michael Bublé. And then there's that giant globe that's taking shape somewhere behind the Venetian. We'll see what the MSG Sphere eventually leads to. One assumes it will, at the very least, lead to some additional shows. And for the 87th time, the proposed basketball stadium, which would take form on the old property there where Wet and Wild was, just to the south of the Sahara. That's been a proposal for, I think, now about a decade, just like the giant bullet trains, which are also probably not going to happen in 2022. What may happen in 2022 is the beginning of this underground boring property which is an appropriate name, transportation system, which will initially start by ferrying people around the convention center and to Resorts World and Wynn, but if plans that have been announced are to be believed, would eventually make its way to most all of the Strip and even off-Strip properties. The monorail came back this year, but for how long, who knows? Apparently the parts that would be required to put it back together again aren't even available anymore, so once it breaks down, it will probably be done. Might want to ride it again, just to be sure. Transportation costs in general were a big deal in Vegas this year because when Uber and Lyft came back, well, they'd never really gone away, but when the visitors came back, the prices had gone up because there were fewer people willing to do the job. Taxis adopted at least a flat fare to locations on the Strip from the airport and made a kind of comeback there. If you wanted to rent a car, that was going to cost you, so that wasn't really a good alternative either. Yeah, Vegas went through a lot this year. And the year to come should be another interesting one. But speaking of interesting, it's time now to introduce our third Vegas tip or trick of the day. And it comes from a brand new Vegas vlogger whose name may be very familiar to you if you're a current Vegas vlogger. Here is our good friend Ronnie C with his thoughts on what you should spend time on when you go to Vegas.
Hey everybody out there in YouTube land, this is Ronnie C here to give you my Vegas tip or trick. Make sure to allow plenty of time for people watching. It's one of the greatest things to do in Vegas and doesn't cost you a dime. This is Ronnie C saying happy holidays and prosperous new year to you and yours. Ronnie C out.
Okay, thanks Ronnie. Somebody not named Kevin. Stay tuned to see if he's our big winner. So, my second trip to Las Vegas this year, which was part of an event that became known as Mark Timber. I can't imagine why. It was kind of dreamed up as an alternative initially to some of the big vlogging events that we saw throughout the year. Myself, Mark Anderson, and Ryan, who you may remember as Anasta 617, and of course PJ, Paul, all kind of thought, well, what if we just get together and kind of do a boys trip to Vegas for a few days? Well, fortunately, as it turned out, Liz was able to join Mark and became my bestie. Hi, bestie. But, yeah, so we were there. I think most of us were there the better part of a week. I know I was. And it was a long week, as those of you who followed along with the vlogs would certainly know. Many of the parts of that week are lost to history and my memory. And but it was a heck of a trip. We'll again sort of try to remember to shout out the people we had a chance to meet. Certainly Daniel Ocean comes to mind, who flew into town basically for one night. And we had a chance to hang out with him at Stage Door and into the wee hours of the morning. We didn't get that fickle dip, so maybe next time. Blair G, another one of those crazy Canadians who seemed to turn up every time any of us needed a drink. I'm not sure that I paid for one the entire trip. Blair, really good guy. Aaron Erdman, Ace 530, as some of you know him from the Twitterverse, was also there. And another great guy we had a chance to meet up with. Met up with the nearly infamous beer store dude who finally showed up at Bar Canada the night we were downtown, so that was great. And I sort of keynoted the Kenos by bumping into them after I left the bathroom that evening at the D. It was great to see them. It was great to see Ace again, Cinnamon. We got to see Vegas Visual. We got to see, oh my God, the Movestro. Movestro was there. We got to meet Tom and Mindy. More about that later. And so many more folks made appearances that I couldn't even begin to remember them all. Certainly a group that was unforgettable were the Slot Gypsies. It was great to meet all three of them. I think it was probably their first trip together to Vegas in some time, and had a lot of fun with them. Got to be a part of a group poll, which was actually pretty successful for a change. That isn't usually how it works. We had a great time, and over the course of several days, we did our part to revive the economy of Las Vegas, or at least the economy at the Stage Door. Some very blurry evenings there. But it was a good time, and it was great having the opportunity to celebrate my birthday in Las Vegas with so many friends, and to share that birthday celebration with my good friend Mark, who I often make fun of, but who's really a good guy. And again, it was great meeting Liz. It's great getting to spend so much time with Ryan and PJ. You know, we went to Circus, ate at the steakhouse, which everybody kind of wants to do and never gets around to. Had a chance to head out to the stadium and see a game there, or at least part of one. And just generally got to know one another. And regardless of the fact that particularly Ryan and PJ have kind of stepped back a little bit from the vlogging world, have remained very close friends. So we appreciate that. That was certainly a big highlight of the trip, as has been the case with so many trips of late. And that's just the people I've had a chance to meet. So speaking of people I've had the chance to meet, our next contestant in the Vegas tip or trick of the year is one, sadly, that I've not had a chance to meet yet. Our wires always seem to cross. Back in 2020, late April, we'd planned to meet up and spend some quality time playing some video poker and perhaps consuming a few beverages along the way, but we all know what happened there. And then our trips in 2021 did not, unfortunately, coincide. But if everything holds together, in March this year, I'll finally get a chance to meet someone we used to call Vegas BB, but who's now just Crystal from Vancouver Island. Here's her Vegas tip of the year.
Hey everybody, Crystal here. I think my biggest Vegas tip of 2021 has to be when you arrive at your hotel and you get up to the room and you're getting all settled in and unpacked, remember to take a photo of your room number. This really would have helped me in 2021. First nights tend to get a little crazy, maybe a little drinky, you're super excited, the adrenaline is just pumping, and then come the end of the night, you forget what floor you're on. So pro tip, remember to take a photo of your room number. Oh, and also use your player's cards. Play where you want to stay. All the best.
All right, thanks, Crystal. Good tip. I actually forgot my room number at the Orleans this past trip. Ended up having to go back to the front desk and have them look it up for me. And they were nice enough to give me 2 more keys, so I had 4 keys for the next 4 or 5 hours that I was staying there. But yeah, definitely worthwhile, and definitely use that player's card. So we'll see at the conclusion of our show if Crystal's our big winner. For me, as has always been the case with this channel, I consider myself the big winner of this past year, even though there were no epic hand pays, and there were plenty of hiccups along the way. But this channel has given me the opportunity to meet so many people who have become such an important part of my life, not just regarding Vegas, but on a day-to-day basis. So I want to thank all of those folks who've been a part of building this channel and supporting me and being a good friend. So what will Vegas tips and tricks be doing in the new year? Well, who knows? We kind of make this up as we go. Sometimes we have wild success. Well, not usually. And other times it kind of falls on its face, but which I've done too. But so to wrap up today's show, at least before we get to the big final spin, you might say, we did have one last entry, a last-minute entry, and it violated all the rules because I'm not even sure it was a real tip or trick, and it was definitely longer than a minute. But people seemed to like it, at least the couple people I showed it to. So we're going to go ahead and allow it anyway. This is from our friends Tom and Mindy. Well, Mindy was at work. Somebody has to work in that family. But Tom decided that you all needed some special Vegas advice, and maybe this guy in particular. So let's see what Tom's entry in the Vegas tip or trick of the year is.
Hey guys, Tom here from Tom and Mindy. Mindy's at work. I wanted to share with you my tip to add to the Vegas tips and tricks end of year tip jar potpourri, whatever John's calling it. because I have a tip that you should take very seriously. My tip is to find yourself one of those vending machines in Vegas that sells shoes. Buy a spare pair of shoes and take them with you before you go out at night. Especially if you're going to take advantage of the $1 Budweisers at the stage door. It's a thing. People lose shoes all the time in Vegas. We don't know where they go. They just disappear. Well, I'm not making this up. Why else would they have vending machines that sell shoes in Vegas? They have several of them. And it's because a lot of shoes go missing. And, I mean, you can ask John. John's a victim. And I think it might be aliens. And that would explain the memory loss. Because everybody I know who's ever lost a shoe in Vegas, they have no memory of it. They have no clue where it went. Yep, alien takes it, erases your memory, send you on your way. Carry a spare pair of shoes with you. It might save your night. And especially if you're a vlogger. I mean, you don't want your video doing this. Right? Hope you had a Merry Christmas. Happy New Year. We'll see you in Vegas. Bye-bye.
Okay, Tom. That was pretty freaking clever. You know, if I was just giving this award away based upon creativity, I'd probably have to give it to that one. But yeah, there really are shoe vending machines. I think there was one, if I remember correctly, there was one over there in the bazaar, Grand Bazaar shops at Bally's, close to the fuel bar where Walt and Tina and I hung out that one night. So, and yeah, I think they exist. So it would have been helpful to me. As many of you already know, I woke up the morning of my birthday missing a shoe. So it happens. It really does. So thanks to all the folks that participated in our video series today. But without any further ado, let's go ahead and spin the wheel. I recorded this earlier. It was the only one time I installed the app. I put people's name on the wheel. I gave everybody 2 slices on the wheel because it just did that, and whatever, it's fine. And so whoever won the initial spin was the winner of the $25 Amazon gift card. I'll contact you if you're on the list, because I think I have all of your, if you win, because I have all of your contact information. But this is what happened on the one and only spin that I took. So let's see who the big winner is. Okay, congratulations to Crystal K. I'll be in touch with you. I don't know if I have your email address, but I'll get it. We'll get that $25 Amazon gift card out to you so you can have things delivered to your remote outpost in the Canadian woods. So that's going to about wrap up our show today. As always, if you've lasted this long, please hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, leave a comment. What your thoughts are on the year that has passed and the year that is to come. Certainly be interested to hear that. You know, before I go, I wanted to kind of plant a bug in the ears of all of you. Most of us who frequent this channel and are regular Vegas visitors almost consider Las Vegas to be home. And something happened earlier today, this morning, that made me realize that maybe we need to be better homemakers. We had a video that got posted in our Facebook group, 53,000 strong, thank you, about the homeless situation in Las Vegas. And it was a short video just showing some of the camps in North Vegas. And while there were a number of people who were very sympathetic, who thought, wow, this is really sad, there were also a bunch of people that kind of reported it and said, I don't want to see this. But I think we need to see it. I know probably a couple of years ago to now, I did a podcast with Ace, and one of the things we talked about was homelessness in Las Vegas, and it's a big issue. No matter where you go, you can't really escape it. It's just a few blocks from the Strip. It's just a few blocks from downtown. There's no easy solution to the homeless problem. We can't simply throw money at it. Cities and states have tried that, and effectively it sometimes makes the problem worse. There are people out there who are trying to help these folks. Usually any city is going to have an active Salvation Army or a city rescue mission. Consider the next time you visit Las Vegas, donating some money to some of the people trying to help these sad people for whom Vegas is definitely not a fun place anymore, if it ever was. Or maybe just consider giving these folks a buck or two. I know myself, it's very easy to walk by the problem and not acknowledge these people and just wish they would go away. But I think as stewards, in part, of Las Vegas and that community, we owe it to ourselves to do a little better than that. So consider giving them a few bucks, or maybe giving them a meal, or donating to some of the people who are trying to help. So that's my final thoughts on 2021 and into 2022. Please like, comment, and subscribe. And we're going to see you all throughout this year. Until I do, I hope that you have a great, lucky, and healthy new year. We'll see you soon. Bye-bye.